On November 2, 2000, American astronaut Bill Shepard and Russian cosmonauts Yuri Gidzenko and Sergei Krikalev floated through a hatch and into the International Space Station. They were the first permanent residents of the most expensive object ever built by human hands, a $150 billion orbital laboratory the size of a football field, assembled piece by piece over a decade by 15 nations working together. Since that day, the ISS has never been empty, not for a single moment. For more than 24 years, there has been a continuous human presence in space, the longest unbroken stretch in history. The International Space Station wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a political one. Built in partnership with Russia just years after the Cold War ended. Staffed by astronauts from the United States, Russia, Japan, Canada, and 11 European nations. A symbol of what former adversaries could accomplish together. And for 2 decades, if you wanted to conduct research in microgravity, if you wanted to test systems for long-duration spaceflight, if you wanted to put humans in orbit, there was exactly one address in the entire universe. The ISS was the only game in town. But there was one notable absence from this grand international project. One major spacefaring nation that was never invited to the table. One rising power that watched from the outside as competitors collaborated above their heads. China. Not because they didn't want to participate, they asked multiple times. In 2007, China's Vice Minister of Science and Technology publicly stated that China would like to join the ISS program. In 2010, the European Space Agency proposed inviting China to participate. Both times the United States said no. And then, in 2011, Congress made it permanent. The Wolf Amendment, named after Virginia Representative Frank Wolf, prohibited NASA from using any federal funds to engage in direct, bilateral cooperation with China or any Chinese-owned company. The justification was national security. In 2007, China had demonstrated an anti-satellite weapon, destroying one of their own defunct weather satellites and generating thousands of pieces of orbital debris. There were allegations of Chinese hackers targeting NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The Chinese space program's close ties to the People's Liberation Army raised concerns about dual-use technology transfer. We don't want to give them the opportunity to take advantage of our technology, Wolf explained at the time. China is spying against us. They have taken technology from NASA. The amendment effectively banned China, not just from the ISS itself, but from most meaningful cooperation with the American space program. Chinese scientists were barred from NASA conferences. Collaboration on research was prohibited without explicit FBI certification. The message was clear. China would be locked out of the international space community until its behavior changed. And here's where the illusion sets in. American policymakers assumed this exclusion would slow China down, that without access to American expertise, without a seat at the table of international cooperation, China's ambitions in human spaceflight would remain limited. After all, human spaceflight is extraordinarily difficult. The United States and Soviet Union had spent decades and billions developing the capability. How could China, working alone, catch up? What they failed to consider was that China had already found another partner willing to share exactly the technology they needed. In 1995, more than 15 years before the Wolf Amendment, China signed a deal with Russia. The agreement transferred Soyuz spacecraft technology to China, including life support systems, docking mechanisms, and, critically, the basic design principles for a human-rated spacecraft. Chinese engineers received access to Russian facilities. They studied Russian hardware. They trained at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City. And then they went home and built their own spacecraft, Shenzhou. Resemblance was not subtle. Like Soyuz, Shenzhou consists of 3 modules: a forward orbital module, a re-entry capsule in the middle, and an aft service module. The overall layout is identical. The landing technology, parachutes followed by soft landing retrorockets, is the same. China has publicly acknowledged that Shenzhou's life support system is a direct copy of the Russian design. But here's what makes Shenzhou interesting. It's not just a copy, it's bigger. About 10% larger than Soyuz, with more internal volume, and a more capable orbital module that can operate independently in orbit. On October 15, 2003, just 8 years after that technology transfer deal, Yang Liwei became the first Chinese astronaut to reach orbit. China became only the third nation in history to independently launch a human into space. And they didn't stop there. Tiangong 1 launched in 2011, the same year the Wolf Amendment passed. Tiangong 2 followed in 2016, and on April 29, 2021, the Tianhe core module of China's permanent space station launched from Hainan Island. By late 2022, Tiangong was complete, a 3-module station in low Earth orbit, permanently crewed. Nation America had tried to exclude from space now had its own address. So did China steal its way into space? The technology transfer from Russia in 1995 was a commercial agreement. Russia, struggling economically after the Soviet collapse, sold hardware and expertise to China. This was legal, documented, and, at the time, not particularly controversial. But what China did with that foundation is where the picture gets complicated. Western analysts who've examined Shenzhou describe it as conceptually based on Soyuz, but not a copy. The external shape is scaled up. The internal systems have been substantially modified. The orbital module's independent propulsion capability, something Soyuz lacks, represents genuine Chinese innovation. The same pattern appears in Tiangong itself. The station's architecture draws on principles pioneered by Mir and the ISS, but with Chinese characteristics: a more compact footprint, different docking systems, and a modular design optimized for China's specific launch vehicles. China's argument is straightforward. Every spacefaring nation builds on what came before. The United States recruited German rocket scientists after World War II. Russia's space program emerged from captured German V-2 technology. No one develops these capabilities in complete isolation. There's a counter-argument. In March 1994, Beijing and Moscow signed a formal space cooperation agreement. Russia provided docking systems, model spacecraft, flight control technology, and life support systems. Chinese astronauts trained in Russia. Chinese engineers studied at Russian facilities. This wasn't industrial espionage, but it wasn't exactly independent development either. And then there's what happened after, when international embargoes tightened in the late 1990s, cutting off further Russian technology transfers. China pivoted to domestic development. The resulting systems, indigenous avionics, Chinese-designed docking mechanisms, domestically manufactured solar panels, are genuinely Chinese achievements. The question of whether Tiangong represents theft, technology transfer, or independent innovation depends entirely on where you draw the line. What's not in question is the result. On January 31, 2031, the International Space Station will make its final descent. SpaceX has been contracted to build a specialized vehicle to push the 400-ton structure into the atmosphere, where it will burn up over the South Pacific. After more than 30 years, the ISS will be gone. And when that happens, China's Tiangong may be the only continuously crewed space station in orbit. The irony is staggering. The Wolf Amendment was designed to isolate China from space cooperation, to protect American technology, to slow China's progress. Instead, it forced China to develop independent capabilities. And now, as the ISS ages out of service, those capabilities are the only guaranteed option for nations that want access to orbital research. In February 2025, China signed an agreement to host Pakistan's first astronaut on Tiangong. It's the first step in what China calls an open-door policy, inviting developing nations to participate in Chinese space missions on terms of mutual respect and shared development. Tiangong already hosts experiments from 17 countries, including Germany, France, Italy, Japan, India, and Russia. The United Nations has confirmed that China's space station is the first project of its kind open to all UN member states. The nation that was barred from international space cooperation is now offering that cooperation to others. NASA is working with private companies to develop commercial space stations that might launch by the late 2020s. But might is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Axiom Space, Blue Origin, and Northrop Grumman all have plans, but none are operational yet. If those commercial stations face delays, and major space projects almost always face delays, there may be a period where Tiangong is the only address in orbit. The space station America tried to prevent may become the only one left. Whether China copied, adapted, or innovated their way, there might be the wrong question. The station exists, it works, and increasingly, it's the future.